안녕하세요. 꾸준한 영어 테드쌤입니다. 오늘 버니클라 낭독전에 A Dream Within a Dream 이라고 하는 에드가 앨런 포의 시를 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. 역시 가장 사랑받는 영미시선 100선 중에서 골랐고요. 사랑하는 아내를 잃은 에드가 앨런 포가 많은 시를 썼죠. 이 앞전에도 시 하나를 제가 소개했었는데 역시 같은 맥락에서 쓰여진 시이고 아내를 잃은 현실에서 너무나 현실적인 고통이 컸던 그 마음을 이 시를 통해서 풀려고 했다고 합니다. 그래서 모든 현실적인 고통들이 꿈이었으면 하는 마음에서 쓰여진 시이고 이 시를 평가하시는 분들 중에서는 본인에게 닥친 현실적 고통을 이 시를 통해서 그 마음을 에드가 앨런 포와 공유를 함으로써 많은 마음적 치유를 받는다고도 합니다. 자, A Dream Within a Dream 같이 한번 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. A Dream Within a Dream by EDGAR Allan Poe. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow. You are not wrong, to deem that my days have been a dream. Yet, if hope has flown away in a night, or in a day, in a vision, or in none, is it therefore the last gone? All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep, while I weep, O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? 네. 잡을 수 없는 것에 대한, 그쵸? 네, 현실적으로도 잡고자 하지만 놓치게 되는 현실에 대한 마음들이 싫어서, 그리고 모래를 통한 비유로서 굉장히 적절하게 쓰여진 시 같습니다. 물론 제가 여러 번 얘기하지만 제가 시를 잘 모릅니다만은 나름 시를 읽어봄으로써 많은 마음의 공감을 이뤄보려고 하고 있습니다. 네. 자, 에드가 앨런 포, 굉장히 훌륭한 소설가이자 뛰어난 시인이기도 하다고 하는데 여러분들도 저와 함께 그분의 작품을 보면서 마음적 공유를 한번 느껴보았으면 좋겠습니다. 자, 주저리 말하려고 하니까 자꾸 말이 실수가 있을 것 같습니다. 버니클라 낭독으로 들어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 오늘은 챕터 2부터 읽어보도록 하겠습니다. 버니클라, 챕터 2, Music in the Night. I feel at this time there are a few things you should know about Chester. He is not your ordinary cat, but then I'm not your ordinary dog. Since an ordinary dog wouldn't be writing this book, would he? Chester came into the house several years ago as a birthday gift for Mr. Monroe, along with the 2 volumes of G.K. Chesterton, hence the name Chester, and the first edition of Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. As a result of this introduction to literature, and given the fact that Mr. Monroe is an English professor, Chester developed a taste of reading early in life. I, on the other hand, have developed a taste for books. I found Jonathan Livingston Seagull particularly delicious. From Chester's kittenhood on, Mr. Monroe has used him as a sounding board for all his students' lectures. If Chester just falls asleep when Mr. Munro is talking, the lecture can be considered a success. Every night, when the family is sleeping, Chester goes to the bookshelf, selects his midnight reading, and calls up on his favorite chair. He especially likes the mystery stories and the tales of horror and the supernatural. As a result, he has developed a very vivid imagination. I'm telling you this because I think it's important for you to know something of Chester's background before I relate to you the story of the events following the arrival of Boniqua into our home. Let me begin with that first night. It seems that after I went to sleep, Chester, still stewing over the lost milk, settled down with his latest book and attempted to ignore the rumbling in his stomach. The room was dark and quiet. This did not prevent his reading, of course, since, as you know, cats can see in the dark. A shaft of moonlight fell across the rabbit's cage and spilled onto the floor below. The wind and the rain had stopped, and as Chester read Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, he became increasingly aware of the eerie stillness that had taken their place. As Chester tells it, he suddenly felt compelled to look at the rabbit. I don't know what came over me, he said to me the next morning, but a cold chill ran down my spine. The little bunny had begun to move for the first time since he had been put in his cage. He lifted his tiny nose and inhaled deeply, as if gathering sustenance from the moonlight. He slicked his ears back close to his body, and for the first time, Chester said, I noticed the peculiar marking on his forehead. What had seemed an ordinary black spot between his ears took on a strange V shape, which connected with the big black patch that covered his back and each side of his neck. It looked as if he was wearing a coat. No, more like a cape than a coat. Through the silence had drifted the strains of a remote and exotic music. I could have sworn it was a gypsy violin, Chester told me. I thought perhaps a caravan was passing by, so I ran to the window. I remembered my mother telling me something about caravans when I was a puppy, but for the life of me, I couldn't remember what. What's a caravan? I asked, feeling a little stupid. A caravan is a band of gypsies traveling through the forest in their wagons, Chester answered. Oh yes. It was coming back to me now. Station wagons? No, covered wagons. The gypsies travel all through the land, setting up camps around the great bonfires, doing magical tricks, and sometimes, if you cross their palms with a piece of silver, they will tell your fortune. You mean if I gave them a fork they'd tell my fortune? I asked breathlessly. Chester looked at me with disdain. Save your silverware, he said. It wasn't a caravan after all. I was disappointed. What was it? I asked. Chester explained that when he looked out the window, he saw Professor Micklewhite, our next-door neighbor, playing the violin in his living room. He listened for a few moments to the haunting melody and sighed with relief. I've really got to stop reading these horror stories late at night, he thought. It's beginning to affect my mind. He yawned and turned to go back to his chair and get some sleep. As he turned, however, he was startled by what he saw. There in the moonlight, as the music filtered through the air, sat the bunny, his eyes intense and staring unearthly over about them. Now, this is the part you wouldn't believe, Chester said to me. But as I watched, his lips parted in a hideous smile, and where rabbit bucktails should have been, two little pointed fangs glistened. I wasn't sure what to make of Chester's story, but the way he told it set my hair on end. Chapter 3. Some unusual goings-on. The next few days passed uneventfully. I was very bored. Our new arrival, slept all day, and the Chester, whose curiosity has been aroused by the strange behavior of the rabbit that first night, had decided to stay awake every night to observe him. Therefore, he too spent most of his days sleeping, so I had no one to talk to. The evenings weren't much better. Toby and Pete, who used to play with me as soon as they got home from school, now ran immediately to that silly rabbit's cage to play with him. Or at least they tried to, but Nicola did not make the most energetic playmate. It took him quite a while to wake up each night, and then when he did awaken, he didn't do much except hop around the living room. He didn't play catch, he didn't fetch, he didn't roll over to get his tummy rubbed. I couldn't understand why they played with him at all. I expect it was because he was new and different, but I was confident that they would soon tire of him and come back to trusty old Harold. Finally, on the morning of the fourth day, I caught Chester glary-eyed over the water dish. He grumbled at me in a most unpleasant manner. "You know, Chester, you were never exactly charming in the morning, but lately you've become downright grumpy." Chester growled in response. "What are you doing this for anyway? What are you looking for? He's just a cute little bunny." "Cute little bunny?" Chester was amazed at my character analysis. "That's what you think. He's a danger to this household and everyone in it." "Oh, Chester," I said with an indulgent smile, "I think your reading has gone to your head. It's just because I do read that I know what I'm talking about." "Well, what are you talking about? I still don't understand." "I'm not sure yet, but I know there's something funny about that rabbit. That's why I have to keep alert." "But look at you, you're exhausted. You sleep all the time. How can you call that alert?" "I'm awake when it's important. He sleeps all day, so I sleep all day." "So? Just what have you seen since the first night that makes you uneasy?" "Well," said Chester, that is..." At this point, Chester started to bathe his tail, which is a cat's way of changing a subject he finds uncomfortable. He then stumbled sleepily into the living room. "So?" I asked again. Following him, "What have you seen?" "Nothing," he snapped, and proceeded to curl up on his chair to go to sleep. After a moment, he opened one eye. "But that doesn't mean there's nothing to see." For the next few mornings, it was the same routine. I'd be ready for a good romp around the living room, and Chester would go to sleep. Pete and Toby were at school. Mr. Monroe was at the university. He never did too much romping around anyway, and Mrs. Monroe was at her office. No one to play with a poor, neglected Harold. At first I thought I could strike up a friendship with Bunnicula and maybe teach him a few tricks. But I could never wake him up. He was always waking up just about sunset, when I wanted to take a snooze. A rabbit, I concluded, is cute to look at, but is generally useless, especially as a companion to dogs, so I would retire each day with my favorite shoe to the rug and chew. Now some people, especially Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, can't understand my taste for shoes and they yell at me for snacking on them. But I always say there's no accounting for taste. For instance, I remember one evening when Mr. Monroe picked some of his sour balls out of the bowl by his chair and dropped a green one on the floor. He didn't notice as it rolled across the room and landed near my nose. I decided this was a perfect opportunity to try one for myself. I placed it in my mouth and wished immediately that I hadn't. As the tears started running out of my eyes, I thought, "What's wrong with my mouth? It's turning inside out." Mr. Monroe immediately noticed that something had happened. "What's the matter, Harold? Are you looking for someone to kiss?" "Help! Help!" I wanted to cry, but all that came out was an ooh sound. I oohed for days. So how can anyone who likes green sour balls criticize me for preparing a nice panty roper or a bedroom sleeper? But back to the matter at hand. One morning, Chatter had a news. That bunny, he whispered to me across our food bowls, got out of his cage last night. Don't be ridiculous, I said. How could he break through that wire? Look how little he is. That's just it. He didn't break through any wire. He got out of his cage without breaking anything or opening any doors. I looked puzzled, so Chester told me the following story. Now, Harold, he said, I don't want you thinking I'm not a good watch cat, but after a few hours last night, I grew curious about the time. I went into the hallway and you know that new clock they've got? The big one that goes all the way to the ceiling? Well, see, it has this thing in the middle called the pendulum. At first, I figured I would just leave it alone. It looked like this spool they tied on a string and hung from the doorknob for me to play with it when I was a kitten. Every time I hit the silly spool with my paw, it would swing back and hit me on the nose. I hated that toy. So naturally, when I saw this one, I decided not to have anything to do with it. I checked the time. It was midnight. I was all set to go back to the living room when something stopped me. Curiosity? I ventured. I suppose you could call it that. I preferred to think of it as a challenge of the unknown. I put one paw over my nose and reached out with the other one and gave it one good smack. I darn near broke my arm. It's still tender. See how swollen it is. He showed me his little paw. I couldn't see anything wrong, but I knew better than to argue with him. Oh yes, I said. That looks terrible. You must be suffering awfully. You'd better go east today. He limped dramatically, just far enough to display his new handicap, and continued. I couldn't even get to the pendulum. Somebody had put glass in front of it, and I was pretty mad. I was all set to go back, but at the same time, I couldn't help watching the thing move back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was so easy to watch, and before I knew what had happened, I was waking up. You fell asleep? I asked incredulously. I couldn't help it. I didn't even know it had happened, but I looked up at the face of the clock and it was 12:45. I'd been gone 45 minutes. I ran back into the living room, looked at Bunicula's cage, and it was empty. I couldn't imagine where he was. Then I noticed a light coming from under the kitchen door. I went into a crouch, torquing the light, when click. I heard the refrigerator door close, and the light went out. It must have been Mr. Monroe having his midnight snack. I suggested. No, that's what I thought. I jumped on my chair, called a rear quick, and kept one eye open, pretending to be asleep. Slowly, the door to the kitchen squeaked open. The little head poked out from around the corner, and I looked to either side to see if the coast was clear. Then, guess who came bouncing out all by himself, and with that idiotic grin of his plastered all over his face? Well, I guess it wasn't Mr. Monroe, I said. Not unless he wears bunny pajamas and gets very tiny at night. But Nicola, huh? You got it. Unfortunately, I hadn't positioned myself so that I could see him get back into the cage, so I didn't want to let him know that I had seen anything, so I had to stay put. I still don't know how he got out or back in. At this point, Mr. Murner came downstairs to make breakfast. I wondered if Chester hadn't dreamed the whole thing. He did admit that he had fallen asleep, and as I've said, he has quite an imagination. But I was game. After all, there hadn't been any excitement in this place for days. Chester and I took our positions under the kitchen table. We didn't have long to wait. Holy cow! Mr. Murno yelped as he opened the refrigerator door. He took his funny-looking white thing out of the fridge and held it at arm's length. Peter, come down here. What is that? I whispered. That's me, Chester answered. It looks like a white tomato. Very funny, I said, as Pete came into the kitchen. Peter, have you been playing with your chemistry set in here? No, Dad, why? I thought that this might be one of your experiments. Do you know what it is? Gee, Dad, it looks like a white tomato. Just then, Mrs. Murno and Toby came in the door. What all the fuss about? Mrs. Murno asked. We were just trying to figure out what this is. Toby pulled it down so he could get a better look. Well, he said, it looks to me like a white tomato. Mr. Murno took a good long look. You know, he said to his wife, it really does look like a white tomato. There's one way to find out, said Mrs. Murno, who always was the practical one. Let's cut it open and see what's inside. Everybody gathered around the table. I jumped up on a chair, and in all the excitement, no one noticed that I had my paws on the table, which under normal circumstances was discouraged, to say the least. Chester was so lucky. Chester, get off the table, Mrs. Murno said. Chester jumped onto Toby's shoulders, where he stayed to view the proceedings. Mrs. Murno took her sharpest knife and cut cleanly through the thing. It fell into two halves. It's a tomato, all right, said Mrs. Murno. Here are the seeds. But it's all white, Toby observed. And look, said Pete, it's dry. So it is, Mr. Murno said, as he picked up one of the halves. There is no juice at all. Well, Anne, what do you think? It's gone bad, I guess, though I've never heard a tomato turning white before. Come on, she said, clearing the table. Let's throw it out and have breakfast. And Harold, get your paws off the table. Rats. Chester jumped down from Toby's shoulders and motioned for me to follow him into the living room. This had better be important, I said. They are cooking bacon. A white tomato, very significant, Chester murmured. So it's a white tomato, I said, edging my way back to the kitchen door. What does that have to do with Bunnicula? I can tell you one thing, Chester said. I got a good look at the tomato. There were very suspicious marks on the skin. So, I believe they are teeth marks. So tonight, I'm gonna reread the book I read last year. How fascinating, I said, as the aroma of frying bacon wafted across my nostrils. And what book might that be? What book might that be? The Mark of the Vampire. What? I stopped dead in my tracks. Meet me tonight after the others have gone to sleep. You'd better take a nap today so you can stay awake. Chester closed his eyes. I shifted my look to Bunnicula, who seemed to be asleep in this cage. A tiny smile sat upon his lips. A happy dream? I wondered, or something else. My reverie was broken by the sound of crunching bacon. I was in the kitchen in a flash. Chapter 4. A cat prepares. I almost didn't make it to my meeting with Chester that night. Toby had a feast in his room. It was Friday night, and on Friday nights, Toby gets to stay up and read as late as he wants to. So, of course, he needs lots of food to keep up his strength. Good food like cheese crackers, chocolate cupcakes, my very favorite, the kind with cream in the middle, pretzels, and peanut butter sandwiches. The last I cannot abide because my mouth always gets stuck. Chocolate cupcakes with cream in the center, however, are another story. This particular evening, I stationed myself on Toby's stomach. Usually, I'm a little more subtle, but having missed out on the bacon at breakfast, I was not about to take any chances on the chocolate cupcakes with the cream in the center. Toby knew what I was after, but sometimes he thinks he's funny, and he plays little games with me. Hi, Harold. I'll bet you'd like a peanut butter sandwich, wouldn't you? Here, you have this one that's left over from yesterday, while I eat this boring old chocolate cupcake, which is nice and fresh and has cream in the middle. Okay, Harold? Ha ha. My sides are splitting. What's the matter? Don't you want the peanut butter sandwich? All right, I'll put it away for another night. Oh, here's something you might like. It's a green sour ball from Dad's candy dish that was stuck to my sock. Would you like that, huh, pal? Oh boy, this kid is really hot tonight. No, huh? Well, I'll give you one of my cupcakes, but I know how much you hate chocolate. Would a little drooling on your stomach help convince you otherwise? Oh, you like chocolate? Okay then, you can have both of them. One thing I have to say about Toby, although he's got a rotten sense of humor, he's a nice kid, and naturally, once I'd eaten both cupcakes, which took approximately 4 seconds, I felt obliged to hang around and let Toby know I was grateful. What better way than what better way than to share a few of his cheese crackles? Well, Harold, Toby said sometime later, we've had quite a party, but I have to go to sleep now. I can't keep my eyes open, so I'll have to wait until tomorrow to find out what happens in the next chapter. This is a good book, Harold. It's called Treasure Island, and it's about a man named Robert Louis Stevenson. It's kind of a hard reading, though. I have to keep looking the big words up in the dictionary, so it's taking me a long time to get through it. I've always had trouble with the words myself. Half the time they don't mean what I think they are going to, and then, even when I do find out what they mean, I forget the next day anyway. You might say that I'm smart, but just not the scholarly type. Scholarly type. But it's a really good story, Toby continued. It's all about a pirate, and this little boy just like me. No dogs? And a parrot, Harold. A parrot? What's a parrot? Is there anything about the chocolate cake? That's my idea of a treasure. Well, good night, Harold. If you're gonna sleep here, you'll have to get off my stomach because it's a little full right now. Good night, Toby. I called up at the I curled up at the foot of the bed, but I couldn't sleep, trying to figure out what a parrot was. I thought it might be a lady pirate, since the words sounded something alike, but then again, I thought it might be an umbrella. Chatter would know, I thought, so I went downstairs to ask him. Well, you certainly took your time, Chatter snapped as I sauntered casually into the room. I finished my book half an hour ago. Where were you? It so happens I was discussing great works of literature with Toby. Since when is Twinkies wrapper considered a great work of literature? I decided to ignore that. Unfortunately, several chocolate crumbs fell from my mouth to the floor at precisely that moment. As a matter of fact, I said, trying valiantly to regain my dignity. We were talking about Treasure Island. Ever hear of it? Ever hear of it? He sneered. I read that when I was a kitten. Oh, then tell me, Chatter, what is your parrot? Chatter looked at me scornfully. A parrot, he said, is a tropical gygdactyl bird, older Cetaceans that has a stout curved hooked bills. is often crested, brightly variegated, and an excellent mimic. In other words, Harold, a parrot is a little bird with a big mouth. Oh, I said after a moment. I thought maybe it was an umbrella. Did you get so busy discussing parrots with Toby that you forgot you were going to meet me here? This is important, Harold. I still wasn't sure what a parrot was, but I decided this was not the time to pursue it. Come over here, Chatter commanded, indicating his chair, and let me show you this book. I looked at the chair. Chatter was already sitting in it, with a very large book open in front of him. I don't think there's going to be room for both of us, Chatter, I said. Come on, you're wasting time. Just jump up here. I surveyed the scene carefully. I knew I would have to get a running start since there was just a tiny spot left for me, and I would never be able to fit into it if I pulled myself up slowly. Apparently, I was taking too long for Chester's liking. Will you get up here? He hissed. Okay, if that's what you want. I ran and jumped onto the chair, landing with a great kerplop. Chester, where are you? I cried. I couldn't see anything but the back of the chair. I'd forgot to turn myself around. I'm here, you great oaf. I turned my head. What are you doing on the floor? I asked. You knocked me off the chair. Now just stay put. I'm coming back up. I moved to the back of the chair, and the chatter landed on the front. Now let's see, he said. We both have to see the book. You come over here, and I will move this way. I don't know if you've ever watched a cat try to decide where to sit, but it involves a lot of circling around, sitting, getting up again, circling some more, thinking about it, lying down, standing up, bathing a paw or tail, and circling. A dog, on the other hand, sit. This looks like a good spot, the dog will say to himself. He will then lower his body to the spot in question and is usually so secure in his decision that he will fall asleep immediately. Chatter took what felt like 20 minutes to settle himself in, and just as I was drifting off, the kicks started. Come on, Harold. Quit hogging the seat. And wake up. What were you trying to do? Take a little cat nap? Ha ha ha. I yawned. Now, said Chester, turning to the book. Let's get down to brass tacks. Brass tacks. Let's get down to brass tacks. Let's get down to brass tacks. What exactly is on your mind? I asked. This book and that rabbit, Chester replied. Now tell me, Harold, have you noticed anything funny about that rabbit? No, I said, but I've certainly noticed a lot of funny things about you recently. Think about it, the rabbit sleeps all day. So do I, so do you. Furthermore, he's got funny little sharp teeth. So do I, so do you. Furthermore, he gets in and out of his cage by himself. What kind of a rabbit can do that? A smart one, I said. I could do it. We are not talking about you, Harold. We are talking about the rabbit. Now, where did they find him? At the movies. Yes, but what movie? Dracula, I said. So, he said quickly. Remember the note around his neck? What language was it in? An obscure dialect of the Carpathian Mountain region, I answered smugly. He didn't know everything. Chester said. But what area of the Carpathian Mountain region? Area? What's an area? I looked at him blankly. Transylvania, he cried triumphantly. And that proves my point. What point? What are we talking about? And don't forget the white tomato, the most important of all. But what? This book, said Chester. Disregard me. tells us just what we need to know. What? I practically screamed. What does it tell us? What does this book have to do with Bunnicula? What are you talking about? What's going on here? I can't stand it anymore. Chester regarded me coolly. You are really very excitable, Harold. That's not good for your blood pressure. I put my paws around his throat. Tell me, I said in a low, threatening voice. Or I will squeeze you till you pop. Okay, don't get upset. Now this book tells you everything you've always wanted to know about vampires, but were afraid to ask. Personally, I had never wanted to know anything about vampires, but at the moment, I was afraid to tell that to Chester. I still don't understand what vampires have to do with our little furry friend. One, Chester said, vampires do not sleep at night. They sleep only during the day. The same holds true for this rabbit. 2 vampires can get in and out of locked rooms, but Nicola gets in and out of his locked cage. This was beginning to interest me. Didn't you say something about the refrigerator? That's right. He got the refrigerator open, all by himself. 3. Vampires have long pointed teeth. They are called fangs. Well, don't we have fangs? No, we have canines. That's different. What's different about it? Fangs are more pointed, and vampires use fangs to bite people on the neck. Yuck! Who'd want to do that? Vampires, well, that's who. Wait a minute. I saw Mrs. Morner bite Mr. Morner on the neck once. Does that mean she's a vampire? Boy, are you dumb? She's not a vampire. She's a lawyer. She bites necks. I don't think that's quite the same thing. No, Bunnicula does not bite people on the neck. At least, not so far, but he does bite vegetables. On the neck? I asked. Vegetables don't have necks, Harold. Vegetables are like that. It's like dogs. Dogs don't have brains. Dogs are like that. Oh yes? I said. Of course he bites vegetables. All rabbits bite vegetables. He bites them, Harold, but he does not eat them. That tomato was all white. What does that mean? It means that he paints vegetables? I ventured. It means he bites vegetables to make a hole in them, and then he sucks out all the juices. But what about all the lettuce and the carrots that Toby has been feeding him in his cage? What indeed? Chester said. Look at this. Whereupon he stuck his paw under the chair cushion and brought out with a flourish an assortment of strange white objects. Some of them looked like unironed handkerchiefs, and the others? Well, the others didn't look like anything I'd ever seen before. What are they? I asked. Chester smiled. Lettuce and carrots, he said. White lettuce and carrots. I found them hidden behind his cage. I was aghast. What did it all mean? Could Chester be right? Was this a harmless-looking little ball of fluff really a vampire? Just then, Chester let out a yelp. Look, he said. The cage is empty again. Oh, we are fools. We will let him get out of our sight. It's your fault. My fault? You are the one who took 20 minutes to sit down. Well, if you hadn't knocked me off in the first place. Wait a minute. Why are we arguing? Let's find Bunnicula. Just then, we heard a click in the kitchen. Refrigerator, I whispered. Chester nodded. We jumped down and moved cautiously to the kitchen door. Shh. Chester warned unnecessarily as we crept along. Don't make any noise. We don't want him to hear us coming. Obviously, I retorted. The light went out under the door. He must have closed the refrigerator. Chester said, Easy now. We pushed the door open. The kitchen was dark, there was not a sound. Psst, Chatter. What? I can't see. I can't see him. He's not here. There was a soft scamper across the rhinorium, and we turned just in time to see a little white tail bounce out the door into the living room. Drat! We've missed him. Come on, Harold. Let's see if we can catch up with him. Chatter started toward the door. Wait, Chatter. What's that on the floor by the refrigerator? He turned. This new object interested him more than following Bunnicula. Watch out, he said. I'll take care of this. He slunk across the room slowly, muscles taut, eyes alert. When he was about 6 inches away, he stuck out his paw, closed his eyes, and batted at the object tentatively. I don't think he made any contact. Get closer, I said. Chatter's eyes popped open. Who's the cat here? He asked. I know what I'm doing, and he proceeded to bat the air 3 more times. What is it? I squealed as my throat contracted in fear. I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's not alive. Oh boy, if I wait for you, we'll be here all night. I walked bravely to the object and sniffed it. Well, asked Chatter. Beats me. Chatter came closer. After a moment of close examination, he gasped. I jumped. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Harold, Chatter blurted. What? It's... Yes? It's... What is it, Chatter? It's a white zucchini. 오케이. 오늘은 여기까지 읽도록 하겠습니다. 눈이 자꾸 감깁니다. 침침해져요. 네, 감사합니다.